On today's episode, we are talking about the paradox of more. This has been something that has been coming up again and again for us. And I think it's so interesting in life and in business when stuff just keeps coming up, right? You just have like a theme for a year or for, a certain amount of time. And I feel like this paradox of more has been something that has continued to come up for us in our business in a number of different ways. And what I mean by paradox of more is there's this very, I think, human urge to accumulate more and to solve problems with addition. So to just bring in more. And we've had a bunch of examples in our company where we realized that we were approaching things with addition. We were looking at, okay, if we want this result, we need to invest more in this or invest more in this. And we've realized we've shifted to looking more closely at how are we actually leveraging the things that we already have before we buy or accumulate more. This could be applied to many things. It's very Marie Kondo. I want to share a few examples that we've had in our company in the hopes that maybe you see yourself in some of these and see gaps where you could actually be leveraging the resources you already have more effectively in addition or instead of buying more. So number one is leads. So Jess and I are both constantly doing sales strategy. Jess has built a great sales team. We meet every single day. We also have like other strategy meetings. And so we're always in conversation about sales, about leads, about ads, everything. It's very dynamic. As you know, if you own a business, the sales and marketing is very dynamic. It's changing all the time. And one of the things that has been a constant source of conversation, because we had our first 500K month in December. And now we're very focused on how do we make that a pattern? How do we have that be the norm now where, every month is at least 500K? And that has led to a lot of really interesting problem solving and questions that we've been asking and looking at how do we consistently hit 500K. And something that kept coming up was this idea of we need more leads, we need more leads, we need more leads. And on the surface at first, nobody questioned that. Everybody was like, makes sense, more sales, more leads, like let's buy more, let's run more ads. And I'm not saying don't buy more. I'm not saying don't run ads. But when I looked at everything, I realized that we had thousands of leads in our Facebook group, on our email list, in our ecosystem, listening to this podcast. Hello. And it was amazing to realize that we had so many leads. And it reminded me of, there's like an old parable that I think was in The Power of Now about a beggar who's sitting by the side of the road on this box. And he's been sitting there begging for, his whole life. And somebody finally asks, like, what's in that box? And he opens it and it's full of gold. So maybe a little cheesy, but I love the metaphor that you're already sitting on all this incredible potential that is untapped. And so with the leads, it totally changed our approach, because instead of saying, let's just slap some addition on this problem and hope for the best, let's just buy more leads, let's run more ads, it created a whole different challenge. And we started asking totally different questions of how can we unlock the potential of all of these leads? How come we're not already? What's getting in our way? How are these leads organized in a way that's making it harder for salespeople to stay in touch with them and to nurture them? And because we started asking different questions and coming at it from a totally different perspective, we're now unlocking all of this huge potential. And the great part about it is it's not potential that we have to buy, right? These are leads that we've already accumulated, we've already bought. And so not only are we saving overhead, but we're solving a really important problem, because if we were to just keep buying more leads and buying more leads, that pool is going to keep growing, but we have not solved the problem of how are we effectively managing that database, and that problem would have just gotten bigger and bigger.
Yep, absolutely. And this dovetails really nicely into podcast guesting because when I have conversations with our clients who maybe they're a few months into doing interviews, or maybe they're 6 months in and they're like, well, I'm not seeing results yet. I need bigger shows. I need more audiences. I need more interviews. I need better interviews. I need more hosts. I had a conversation with a client recently and I said, well, let's actually look. Like, do you have listed out all of the hosts that we've booked you with? And they're like, yes. I said, okay, look at that list. Tell me, are those hosts ideal potential clients? And she said, actually, yes, most of them are. And I said, okay, when's the last time you contacted one of them and nurtured your relationship? And she said, I haven't in a while. And it was just so great because it was like, wow, we went from thinking there was a problem with the types of shows and the results and all of that, when just asking the questions differently, looking at what can we do? How can we multiply what we already have here? It shifted from feeling like we needed more and different and bigger and better to what can we do with what we already have? And it just totally shifted her mindset. And that's a lesson that I want everyone who's out there doing interviews and really every entrepreneur listening to look at what you already have and how can you multiply the results with what you already have.
Another great example of this is with our team. So if you've been paying attention to our social media and what we've been talking about, you probably know that I personally have become obsessed with Agile and with Scrum and with those ways of working. And I read a book about Scrum, and then I started completely overhauling the whole company. Luckily, everyone was on board. I had all the leaders read the book. I hired a consultant to come in and help implement it. She's doing workshops, doing labs. She's working with the team directly. Jess and I are coaching the team. We are doing a massive overhaul in our business. We are changing everything. It is a huge endeavor in order to make our company and our team agile. And if you don't know what that is, you should really look into it because it's amazing. And I truly believe that not only is it an incredible way forward, I think it's the only way forward. And companies with teams who do not become agile will die. Not to be a downer, but I really believe that. So check it out if you don't know about it. But one of the amazing things about agility and also about the leadership development that Jess and I have both been doing is we've learned so much about multiplication instead of addition when it comes to your team. There's a great book by Liz Weissman called Multipliers that I highly recommend. And she illustrates this really well. And she did a lot of research on this. So the book is very research based. And it's absolutely incredible when you look at the science behind what certain people and certain leaders are able to do. And she shared in that book that mediocre leaders, diminishing leaders get maybe 50% out of their people, whereas incredible leaders, she calls them multiplier leaders, get 100%. And actually, a lot of their team reported 110%. They said they get more out of me than I even think is possible myself. So over 100%. And I thought this was so fascinating. And it's not, I think it's tempting when you hear this to continue to use addition. So you hear, I'm getting twice as much out of my people. You may think, I'm giving them twice as much work. I'm just loading them up with twice as many clients. But that's not it. That's still that addition thinking that is so flawed. It's multiplication. It's how are you getting the most out of your team's brain and creativity? And spoiler alert, to get the most out of your team, they have to be really happy and engaged at work. And if they're not, you need to make some massive shifts like the ones that we just made. So this is so interesting because I came into business with no business experience. So I wasn't mature. I didn't know anything and I was using addition. More clients, okay, more team, more clients, more team, more clients, more team. We kept going like that. And what you'll find if you do that and you get big enough and you start doing multi seven figures in sales per year, is that your payroll gets really, really heavy. And you also have so many people in the mix that it gets very, very complex, right? There's a lot of personalities. There's a lot of communication that needs to happen. things get complex and heavy very quickly, and you need to adapt. And it's been so incredible to look at how changing the way our teams work and how they're structured allows the same number of people in the same number of hours or less to do way more work, have the work be way more valuable, way more impactful. And it sounds impossible and counterintuitive when you're thinking from the point of view of more, that paradox of more, that paradox of addition. It doesn't feel possible that you would be able to do more work without adding more team, but it is. And we're learning that firsthand. And I think team is a big place where the paradox of more trips people up and gets them into situations where financially it's unsustainable for their company. It's not fun for their team. There's a lot of burnout, and it's not a long-term play. So in summary, we've talked about so many different examples. We've talked about leads. We talked about podcast guesting and the audiences you're getting in front of and the hosts that you're talking to. We've talked about your team members. This shows up in so many different places. I bet it's showing up in other places in your business that we haven't even talked about here. But I want to challenge you to shift your mindset. And I'm not telling you to not go out and get more. I'm not telling you to not get in front of more audiences or get more leads or hire more team. I'm not saying that. But what I am challenging you to do is look at the resources that you already have. Look at the things that you're already investing time and money into doing, and ask yourself, could you be maximizing that more effectively?
Yeah, it really speaks to the value of excellence, because when you ask that question of how you can be utilizing what you already have, you are forced to take responsibility for doing better and being more effective and being more resourceful. And that is a little confronting at first, because I know for me, I suggested, why don't we start buying lists? And it felt so much easier. But then when Margy came back initially with what are the legal ramifications of buying lists? But also how can we use what we already have? I was forced to be okay, how can we actually be more effective salespeople? How can we be more effective with what we already have? So I just want to say that you're going to have to confront that as well, because there's no knight in shining armor that's going to come in and make this easier. You got to do the work. Let us know where in your business you are ignoring what you already have. Let us know. Find us on Instagram at Interview Connections and send us a direct message. Let us know that you listened to this episode and share with us, what are you going to make the most of that you already have?